I always knew my mother-in-law had a sharp tongue, but I never expected her to humiliate me in my own home. She had always made passive-aggressive comments, little jabs disguised as helpful advice, but I tried to brush them off. I thought if I just stayed polite, if I kept proving myself, maybe one day she'd actually accept me. I sat there, my mother-in-law's smirk burning into my brain. The audacity. The sheer arrogance of her sitting at my table, eating my food, and acting like she was some food critic on a reality show. My husband still hadn't said a word. He was pretending to be too focused on his plate, avoiding eye contact like this whole thing wasn't happening. Typical. I swallowed my pride and forced a smile. I'm glad you think it's edible. I worked really hard on it. She just laughed. Oh, sweetheart, don't take it so personally. Cooking isn't for everyone. That was it. That was the moment I decided that I wasn't going to let this slide. I had spent years playing nice, biting my tongue, trying to win her over. But if she wanted a battle, fine. I'd give her one. I just needed the perfect plan. I spent the next few days planning. If she wanted to treat me like I wasn't good enough, like my cooking wasn't worthy of her refined taste, then I'd make sure she got exactly what she asked for. But not in the way she expected. Dinner was supposed to be a peaceful, pleasant evening, the kind where everyone sits around the table enjoying good food, sharing stories, maybe even laughing. But in my house, dinner with her was never just dinner. It was an event, a performance, a carefully orchestrated show where she played the lead role, the expert, the critic, the one who always knew best. And this time, I was going to flip the script. I had spent hours in the kitchen making sure everything was perfect, not just good, perfect. Every ingredient had measured to precision and every dish seasoned just right. I'd gone all out, not just because I wanted to impress her, but because I needed to prove a point. The table was set. The food was plated beautifully, and the moment had finally arrived. She picked up her fork, took a bite, and then it happened. She set her fork down slowly, took a deep breath, and looked me dead in the eye. Well, this is certainly edible. Silence. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. She smirked, tilting her head slightly. I suppose not everyone can cook. I felt my stomach drop, not because I was hurt. Oh no, not this time. I had expected this. But he was sitting right there, and he said nothing. He shifted uncomfortably, staring at his plate like it might save him. Not a single word of defense, not even an attempt to smooth things over. Just silence. And that's when something inside me clicked. For years I had let things slide. The backhanded compliments, the passive-aggressive remarks, the never-ending critiques disguised as helpful advice. I had tried. I had played nice. I had given her every chance to show me an ounce of respect. But this was the last straw. I smiled, slow and deliberate. I'm so glad you think so. I worked really hard on it. She laughed lightly, waving her hand. Oh, sweetheart, don't take it so personally. Cooking isn't for everyone. There it was. The final nail in the coffin. I put my fork down, carefully folding my napkin beside my plate. I wasn't going to snap. I wasn't going to argue. No, I had a better idea. She wanted to play games? Fine. I had to make sure she ate her words. The next morning I started planning. If she wanted to act like the ultimate food critic, I'd give her the ultimate culinary experience. But not just any experience. One that she wouldn't forget anytime soon. I spent hours researching, looking up dishes with the most acquired taste possible. Not bad food. Oh no, I wasn't going to give her anything disgusting. Just different. Challenging. The kind of food that true connoisseurs appreciated. By the time I was done, I had my plan. I casually mentioned hosting another dinner. A fancy high-end meal to make up for last time. She loved the idea, of course. Oh, that sounds wonderful. It'll be nice to have something truly refined. She had no idea. The night of the dinner, she arrived dressed for the occasion, already prepared to nitpick every detail. Oh, I hope dinner won't be too, experimental this time, she mused, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I smiled. Oh, don't worry. Everything is authentic and traditional. I followed professional recipes exactly. Her smirk widened. Well, that's a relief. She had no idea. The table was set with meticulous precision, every dish plated beautifully, the aroma filling the air with rich, complex flavors. The moment she sat down, she glanced at the spread, her expression shifting slightly. This looks interesting. I beamed. I thought you'd appreciate it. Everything here is a delicacy in different parts of the world. Only true food lovers can fully enjoy these flavors. She nodded slowly, reaching for her fork. First up, fermented shark, a delicacy in Iceland known for its strong, lingering, ammonia-like taste. She took a small bite and instantly regretted it. Her jaw tensed as she forced herself to chew, swallowing with obvious effort. Oh, this is, unique? I feigned concern. Oh no, do you not like it? I thought you had such an appreciation for fine dining. She cleared her throat. No, it's just a very distinct flavor. I smiled sweetly. Well, I made plenty, so feel free to have as much as you like. Next came the century egg congee, a comforting, well-loved dish in many cultures, if you could get past the pungent preserved egg flavor. She hesitated before taking a spoonful. The second it hit her tongue, her face barely concealed the look of pure regret. I leaned in. I really wanted to push myself this time. Challenge my skills. I figured you of all people would appreciate that. She nodded stiffly, taking a sip of water, probably hoping it would wash away the taste. And then came the final touch. For dessert, durian mousse, a tropical delicacy famous for its creamy texture and its overpowering pungent smell. She hesitated. I tilted my head. Oh, come on. You always say food lovers should be open-minded. Trapped. She scooped a spoonful into her mouth. The moment it hit her taste buds, I knew I had won. She swallowed, slowly dabbing her mouth with her napkin. Well, it's certainly a bold choice. I nodded. I suppose not everyone can appreciate the finer things in life. She went silent. For the first time ever, she had nothing to say. That night, when she finally left, her container of leftovers reluctantly clutched in her hands, I knew I had done more than just prove a point. I had ended the war. And from that moment on, she never insulted my cooking again, not once, because she knew. If she ever did, she'd have to eat her words. The smirk on her face had vanished. She sat stiffly at the table, her back unnaturally straight, her hands delicately folded on her lap, as if that would somehow help her stomach the meal. Across from her, there was no attempt to hide amusement, just barely contained laughter behind a glass of water. A slow, deliberate bite was taken from the congee. This is amazing. I just love the depth of flavor, don't you? There was hesitation. A battle behind the eyes, weighing the humiliation of admitting defeat against the horror of enduring another bite. Finally, a tight smile. Yes. Very, bold. That wasn't enough. Not yet. Oh, I almost forgot. I made extra so you could take some home. I figured you'd appreciate having more to enjoy later. A flicker of panic. Trapped. If she refused, it would be an admission that she hated it. If she accepted, she'd be stuck with a container full of food she had no intention of eating. Oh, well, that's very generous of you, dear, but I don't want to take too much. You should enjoy it. A thoughtful nod. Oh, don't worry about that. There's plenty. Let me pack some up for you. Before another excuse could be crafted, a container was filled and placed right in front of her. The smile was forced, the tension in her jaw unmistakable. That's so thoughtful of you, she said through clenched teeth. Anything for family. Laughter barely held back from across the table as plates were cleared. Not long after, she excused herself. It's getting late. I should go. Thank you for dinner, dear. It was an experience. At the door, the container was still clutched tightly in her hands as if it might somehow explode. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. We should do this again soon. A stiff smile, then she practically fled. The door shut, and the laughter that had been barely contained burst out. Oh my God, you actually did it! A casual shrug. She had it coming. That was the first time I've ever seen her speechless. That night, sleep came easily. But for her, the war was far from over. 2 days later, a call came through. I just don't understand why she felt the need to be so dramatic about it, she huffed. I was just joking, and she turned it into some kind of power play. The volume was just loud enough to hear the entire conversation. For once, there was no defending her. You insulted her cooking. What did you expect? Silence. A dramatic sigh followed. Well, I didn't think she'd be so sensitive. It wasn't sensitivity. You've been making comments about her cooking for years. You embarrassed her in our home. She just played your game better than you did. That was when everything shifted. For too long she had said whatever she wanted without consequence. The endless critiques, the backhanded compliments, the way every visit turned into a subtle reminder of who was supposed to be in control. And for too long the game had always been one-sided. For the next few weeks she scrambled to regain control. Calls became more frequent. Random check-ins, offers to help with errands, even an unexpected drop-off of homemade food. The last one was particularly transparent. I made his favorite dish. I thought I'd bring some over since I know cooking can be such a challenge for you. There was no reaction, no hint of offense, just polite indifference. Oh, that's sweet of you. I actually just made a big meal, so we have tons of leftovers, but I'll definitely try it next time. Her voice was tight. Oh, well, I guess I'll just bring it for him to have at work, then. He probably won't need it. He's been raving about my cooking lately. I think I finally perfected my seasoning. Silence. The battle had already been lost. She just didn't realize it yet. Every attempt to regain footing fell flat. Passive-aggressive comments went unanswered. Little jabs that once sparked arguments were met with nothing but polite smiles. The one thing she thrived on, control, had been taken from her, and she had no idea how to function without it. Desperation took over. You don't visit as often anymore. I feel like I'm losing my son. We were just there last weekend. But it's not the same. You used to come over all the time, and now she's keeping you busy. She's not keeping me busy. I just have my own life. Maybe if you didn't try to make everything a competition, we'd visit more. If silence could be weaponized, it would have been deadly in that moment. And then came Thanksgiving, the last attempt at reclaiming her place. She arrived with her famous stuffing, the same recipe that had been made every year, the one thing she knew would be superior. After all, tradition was on her side. Actually, we made stuffing this year, was casually mentioned. It turned out incredible. We don't really need extra. A pause. Oh, but I already made it. Well, I guess we'll have plenty then. That night the stuffing was the first dish to disappear, but not hers. Her serving dish sat mostly untouched. A scoop taken for politeness, but no real enthusiasm, no second servings. The thing she had always been known for. The dish that had always made her the center of attention at family gatherings, that had become irrelevant. There was no recovering from that. From then on, she stopped commenting on food. There was no more competing, no more backhanded critiques. Every dinner invitation was met with vague excuses, each one more transparent than the last. And the best part, the endless attempts to turn her son against his wife, the little manipulations to reassert her influence, had completely failed. The war was over, not just won, ended. And the next time she sat at the table, fork in hand, took a bite and looked up, all she said was, "This is delicious." A slow smile. I know. After that night, something shifted. For the first time ever, she didn't have the upper hand. She didn't have some snide remark ready, some passive-aggressive dig to make me feel small. That night, she had walked out of my house completely defeated, clutching a container of food she would probably throw away the moment she got home. But she wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, she tried to regain control. It started with small things. Random calls, just checking in messages, as if we were suddenly close. Then came the unexpected drop-ins, always with some excuse. Oh, I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd bring over some homemade soup. I know cooking can be exhausting for you. I didn't take the bait. I just smiled and thanked her, and making sure to mention how much my cooking had improved lately, how I'd been experimenting with new flavors and expanding my palate. Every time I said it, her smile tightened just a little more. Then she changed tactics. Guilt-tripping. You don't visit as much anymore. I feel like I'm losing my son. We were just there last weekend. But it's not the same. You used to come over all the time, and now she's keeping you busy. She's not keeping me busy. I just have my own life. Maybe if you didn't try to make everything a competition, we'd visit more. That silence on the other end, that was her realizing she was losing. But the final blow came at Thanksgiving. She arrived, her usual smugness back in full force, carrying her famous stuffing, the one dish she had been making for years, the dish that was always the highlight of family gatherings. Except this year, something was different. Actually, we made stuffing this year, was casually mentioned. It turned out incredible. We don't really need extra. Her face fell for a split second before she forced a polite smile. Oh, but I already made it. Well, I guess we'll have plenty then. Dinner began, and as the night went on, something became painfully obvious. Her stuffing sat barely touched, while mine, completely gone. People were raving about it, going back for seconds, some even asking for the recipe. She watched it all happen, her expression tight, forced, but she didn't say a word. And then it got worse for her. At one point, one of her own family members, a cousin she had always tried to impress, took a bite of my stuffing, sighed contentedly, and casually remarked, "Wow, this is amazing. I think this is the best stuffing we've had in years." The moment those words left their mouth, I saw the exact moment the reality hit her. She wasn't just losing to me. She was losing her place. For the first time in forever, she was on the outside looking in. She wasn't the expert, the one everyone turned to, the one who always had the final say. She had been replaced, and she knew it. She barely spoke for the rest of the night. She just sat there watching, processing, realizing that no matter how hard she tried, the power had shifted. But the most satisfying part? She never even tried to take it back. I didn't expect an apology. That just wasn't who she was. But after that Thanksgiving dinner, something changed. The critiques stopped. The smug comments, the passive-aggressive remarks, the little jabs disguised as helpful advice, all of it disappeared. At first I thought it was temporary, that she was just regrouping, waiting for the right moment to strike again. But weeks passed, then months. And still, nothing. No unsolicited cooking tips, no questioning my ability to run a household, no attempts to insert herself as the authority at every family gathering. For the first time, she treated me like an equal. One day she called, and for the first time she didn't sound condescending. There was no fake sweetness, no "I just wanted to check in" excuse. Just a simple, hesitant question. "Hey, I was wondering if you could send me the recipe for your stuffing." It was really good. I almost laughed. The woman who spent years belittling my cooking was now asking me for a recipe. She must have been dying inside just saying those words. I smiled before replying. Of course. Anything for family. That was it. No grand confrontation, no dramatic showdown. Just the quiet, undeniable shift of power. She would never say she lost, but we both knew it. And from that moment on, she never tried to win again. Not only had I won, I had made sure she would never challenge me again. And that, my friends, is how you make someone eat their words. Sometimes the best way to fight back isn't with arguments or anger, it's with action. You don't have to scream to be heard, you don't have to beg for respect. When someone underestimates you, the most satisfying thing you can do is prove them wrong without even trying. So if you ever find yourself dealing with someone like her, someone who constantly puts you down, who thrives on making you feel small, don't waste your breath trying to change them. Just be so undeniably good that they have no choice but to respect you. Because in the end, winning isn't about making them admit defeat. It's about making sure they never doubt you again.